What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Combat Corporation, your source for combat sports. I'm your host, Al the Postmaster Morrow, and today I have another gear review on the Cleto Reyes Hero Double Loop Training Gloves. Alright folks, as always, I'm incredibly excited to bring you yet another gear review, as today I have the Cleto Reyes Hero Double Loop Training Gloves, and I'm super excited to do this review because if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you know one of my first professional pair of gloves that I reviewed was the Cleto Reyes Training Gloves, which I got a long time ago. I got them 6 years ago when I was a freshman in college. Makes me feel old, but that's a different story. And on top of it, with these, I was excited to do this because Cleto Reyes, over the last few years, has been releasing some newer things. They've changed their stock model a little bit to accommodate to a lot of other people. And when they released this, a few people in the boxing glove world were kind of taken back. They were like, whoa, this is a different design from Cleto Reyes. Usually, and I don't mean this as an insult with Reyes, when you think about Cleto Reyes, you think of a very basic, simple design that does a high-level job, is basically all it is. And those are the type of gloves that I love. They don't have to look cool. You don't have to integrate some groundbreaking design. I just want something that works, keeps my hand protected, and that I can keep hitting non-stop. And that's all I really care about when it comes to gloves, right? Obviously, cool designs are cool, and so we can always go with that. But when they released this, I was definitely like, this is a little bit out of Reyes' wheelhouse. They're stepping out a little bit, trying to do something cool. And there were a few like boxing glove vendors or just gear vendors that were like, well, you know, why try and reinvent the wheel when you've been doing so good with something else? Some of the other reviewers were like, well, this is going to be interesting. I wonder why they did that. And so some people kind of were mix and match when these came out, and I believe mid-January they came out, and I've had them ever since. And with Reyes, I always try and give them a pretty good chunk of time when I use them, and I have been using them quite a long. It's in June now, and I got these a week after they were released. I believe they were released in very late January, and I got them in the first week of February, maybe. But yeah, I've had a blast using these, and I'm really excited to review these. Now, like I said, Reyes is a brand that I've held near and dear in my heart since I was 13 years old, because the very first pair of professional training gloves that was ever given to me was a very dark green pair of Cleto Reyes gloves. They were lace-ups, and my boxing coach gave them to me. I used them for about a year, and then unfortunately there was a flood. I left them on the basement floor in our house because that's where my heavy bag was, and unfortunately the flood destroyed the gloves. And then after that I started to collect a bit more. When I was 14, 15 is when I started to collect. And then the next pair of Reyes that I bought was the tiger orange coloration right here, up here, that I got my freshman year of college when that coloration was first released, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure it was my freshman year of college. It might have been my sophomore, but I am almost positive. I've had them for about 6 years, so that would be my freshman year of college. But overall, Reyes has held a special place in my heart. Cleto Reyes, as I've said a couple times on the channel, I'll just give you a brief background. You can go on their website and do it. I know some people correct me on the story. I just follow what's on the website and then a couple other things that I watched. Basically, Cleto Reyes was a gentleman from Mexico that boxed a match, and he got beat up in that match. He fought courageously, but he just realized that it wasn't cut out for him. And so what he did, I believe his father was a leather worker. He went home, took horsehair, cowhide, and a lot of other stitching materials and made a glove for the guy that beat him. And ever since, Cleto Reyes has been the mainstay of Mexican boxing in a lot of ways, and it's still the mainstay in the world of boxing. I know tons of MMA fighters that use Cleto Reyes. I have a couple teammates actually that use Cleto Reyes, along with different guys in the modern era, like Manny Pacquiao had used Cleto Reyes. Danny Garcia still uses Cleto Reyes. Back in the day where Muhammad Ali used Cleto Reyes, he loved those gloves. Same thing for them being featured in the Rocky movies even. So Cleto Reyes is a very famous brand. For me, there's like 5 massive brands in the world of boxing that you see in championship fights all the time, and those brands are Everlast, Winning, Grant, Cleto Reyes, and Rival for me. And I'd say maybe the 6th one that's coming up now is Venom a little bit, but definitely Cleto Reyes is one of the all-time famous gloves in my opinion. And like I said, people were kind of taken back by the design of this glove, because if we go back to these gloves here that I got 6 years ago now, they were designed a little bit different, right? They were a bit heavier, they were a bit wider, fatter glove, and then I remember releasing the review of this because I had them, let's see, for about 2.5, 3 years when I released a review, or 4 years at that point, when I released a review of these, and people said, yeah, well, those are the old model, they changed the design to make it a bit more compact. So what I did, the moment I read that comment, I went right on Cleto Reyes' website and I bought these, a gold pair, and in lace-ups, and I definitely saw what people were talking about. The thumb seemed like it was a little longer, the knuckle padding seemed a little stiffer, the leather seemed a little stiffer and not quite as thick, and then on top of it, it seemed a little bit more brushed down. Granted, this is a metallic color, and then on top of that, the hand compartment seemed a little bit more compact because people wanted that in the glove. And then people said, well, it still doesn't have the best knuckle padding, so what they did is they released the Cleto Reyes extra padding training glove, which I bought and reviewed. And if you know, I liked using them, but I didn't, because they were by Reyes. I liked them, but the hand compartment was super tight. All the padding took up most of the room in the hand compartment, and they also sacrificed wrist support by giving it more knuckle padding. So they overcompensated in one area to another, but still very well made. Still like that glove a lot compared to some others out there on the market, if I can put that up. And then they released these about 2 years ago. They released the Cleto Reyes high precision training gloves, and I was kind of taken back because the cool Aztec cultured things that are going throughout here, which is really cool. And then the glove was just designed different. It was more rounded. It was supposed to be better for your knuckles and your wrists, and it did a really good job, but I just felt like I had to close my fists super tight at all times. And it was definitely different, and Reyes was trying to go more into a modern way and kind of branch out a bit, which is always cool. I can get behind that. But then they released this, which was shiny. It had a different look to it, and now we have double loops, which is something that's pretty unique in my opinion. But I know what you're thinking, Al, get to the point. That's why I put timestamps so you can skip throughout all this and get to the good part. But my model, guys, of the Hero Double Loop by Reyes is, there's 3 different sizes, 3 different colors. I chose 16 ounce with the copper and Oxford gray coloration. As you can see, you got the gray on the side. It's the Oxford gray. It looks like a gunmetal gray. I will continue to refer it as a gunmetal gray. That's just how it looks to me. But basically, you got 2 other color options other than this. You have silver, which is the main color here, the silver, and then pearl. So you got pearl and silver, and then you got Oxford gray, which is this color, and then silver here instead. So you got 2 different colors, 2 different sizes, 12, 14, 16 ounces, which is your standard size. And the smaller glove that you get, it's not less padding, it's just the glove itself kind of shrinks a little bit. But I got 16 ounce copper and Oxford gray. Going into the look of the glove, as we can see once again, we have that really nice shiny copper back to it, which looks really cool. It's a nice metallic paint that pops out pretty well. And if you look here, you can see the Cleto Reyes logo. It says established in 1945, Cleto Reyes. There's no oval here. You're used to the Cleto Reyes logo being an oval, like on their standard gloves like that. And I personally like that a little bit more. But like I said, they're trying to be a bit more modern, so they just went with that, which is cool. And you have that the copper all the way here on the thumb as well, and the tip of the fingers right down here. And it's a very nice shiny, obviously the light that I have on it, the lights that I have on me shine off this really well, but even without the lights, they shine really well, and it looks nice, and I love that. And then you have a black thumb attachment here, and then you get to the palm, and you can see that we have that gunmetal gray look on the grip bar, on the holes, everything. It is all that gunmetal gray except for the wrist and palm piping, which is all black. Also a cool look of it is you can see that it's all kind of like divoted and on the inside of the leather, and that is actually called thermo engraving, which we'll go into in a second. I researched that just for you guys. But I got the black piping going down here, which is leather, all the way throughout there. And then we come to the Cleto Reyes rubber stamp down here, and that says established 1945. And I believe if I turn it this way, yes, okay, it says 16 ounces. There's also some tags on the inside here. The only thing about the tags, why I'm bringing those up, besides the interior lining being black like usual and the Velcro itself being black, is that it says a show in Mexico, which you guys like to make fun of me all the time because I pronounce it horribly. For whatever reason, I can say Italian things very well, probably because I am of Italian descent and there are members of my family that still speak it. But when it comes to Spanish words, I can't pronounce them to save my life, and so I'm sorry. So that's kind of a thing that I wanted to throw in there so you guys can take a couple swings at me. The other thing too is that the stitching throughout the glove is primarily a black stitching, as you can see here, although in the light it might look like it's a whitish gray, but it is a black. But really what stands out to me when you pull this up is you can see all the leather divoting. I can't wait to get to that part. But let's go into the design of the glove, the build of the glove, and we can talk about the entire outer shell is made out of a cowhide leather. Now I know a lot of people were saying to me, well, I thought it was made out of goat hide. Well, from what I understand is that if you go on their website and you go to other websites, their fight gloves are made of goat hide, their training gloves are made of cowhide. And then some people say that the fight gloves are made out of cowhide. I think the best way to find out would be to go through Reyes, but I'm pretty sure the way it works is the fight gloves are goat hide, and the reason why is because if you go back and watch a documentary about Prince Nassim Hamed, I'd have to go back and look, but the documentary states that he had an issue picking between two different gloves, a yellow pair of goat hide and a green pair of goat hide, and they were both Cleto Reyes gloves. So I think the fight gloves are goat hide, I think the training gloves are cowhide, but you have an entire cowhide shell on the outside here, and let's just use the right glove, why not? And it looks very nice because of all that, and it's not too thick over the padding. It's actually a decent thin amount of padding over top the glove, and the padding is a little bit firmer because you got that nice stretched leather all the way over the top, which is really cool. Now, before I go into the padding itself, I want to get to this part because this is pretty cool. I love how this looks, and this is called thermo engraving leather, right? And what thermo engraving is, from what I did research, it's basically a cheaper alternative and a more technologically advanced alternative than embossing, all right? Because embossing basically means you're putting something into the leather or you're raising it out of the leather. And in this case, they put divots inside of the leather. Now, I don't really know why, because for me, it doesn't add any extra grip. It doesn't make the glove any more comfortable. I think it's more of a fashion statement, but I love how that looks. That looks really cool. Obviously, you can't put that on the top part of our glove here, because I do think after a while it would be funny if you're punching your sparring partner and they have little tiny little dots all over their face, is what I'm thinking. But overall, it looks really cool. But the thermal engraving basically means that you can either raise stuff, and you can go Google it too, and it kind of looks like basic like embossing, kind of like how you get all those things going on in like other leather briefcases and stuff like that. You see like the flowers and gilding throughout it. It's kind of like gilding for metal, right? Which is really cool. But going into the padding now, it has your basic latex foam that you get in most of your Reyes gloves, right? And what I mean by that is it comes from the rubber tree, right? Everyone says, well, what's the big deal about latex? Why people love latex, especially if you're a puncher? It bounces off. It's made of rubber. Here's what I mean. Boop, I turn it in, it pops right back. And then if I curl it in just with one hand and I just let go, it pops right back that quick. Every part of the glove does that except for the wrist support, because the wrist is separate, the top is separate from the bottom a little bit. But that is the one nice thing about this glove, is that it has a bit of a firmer latex, which will protect your knuckles a bit more. And unlike most Reyes gloves, which are a little bit more flat, it has a bit more of a curve, and it looks like it's bowing down a little bit towards the top. And what that does is it cradles your knuckles. When you punch, it's going over your hand like this, okay? And it's kind of sandwiching your knuckles a little bit. Now, it's still thinner padding compared to some other gloves out there. Reyes definitely isn't necessarily the best for knuckle padding all the time, but the latex in general isn't. That's why a lot of people use latex layers. So they'll do one layer of latex and high density open cell foam or sponge foam, if you want to call it that, and then maybe they'll do like a harder foam underneath to protect your knuckles, but the latex is at the top, so you get that nice recoil off, because people really like that pop off the bag, or pop in sparring. That's where the latex come from. I love latex. It's supposed to mimic horsehair in some ways, because horsehair you can punch through. You definitely feel your knuckles going through, punching through, and it just has a nice bounce to it for whatever reason it does. But in this case, latex, it's just foam on the inside of this. But it feels really good. Going to the thumb, which is a lot different from most Reyes gloves I've ever seen. It's a long, thinner thumb, right? But it's a very comfortable fit, and what I think that does is it balances out the glove really well. So the thumb is a bit longer over top here, and it tucks right behind your fingers perfect, and then you also have this ridge here that protects your thumb from smashing, because I do know some people have complained about Reyes gloves and that their thumb smashes into the bag. I personally have never had that issue, but some have, so that's why I brought it up. But the thumb, for me, it's almost like, I won't say a winning style thumb, because winning's definitely shaped different, but it's a different type of thumb. It's more directed into a natural punch position, and on top of it, the glove is shaped in a natural punch position. Right here is where your knuckles are supposed to line up, and that's where the glove stays. It's very well balanced, right? It doesn't just arc one way or the other. It's not top heavy. The whole glove's moving when I try and just move from the wrist strap. Same thing if I go from the top. The wrist isn't flopping. So if I put just this, right, it balances really well. If I overextend that way, it'll go. If I overextend that way, it'll go. But if I keep it right in the center, it balances very, very well. So it's a very nicely balanced glove, which I love about that, because people will complain that the Reyes gloves can be overweight and too heavy. In this case, I weighed them. They're right on point, 16.1 ounces, which is cool. But overall, they feel really light and they feel nice and balanced. When we come back to the palm, though, we have our grip bar, which is a nice grip bar. It's of a firmer foam, I'd say. It feels like rubberized foam there. And then, like I said, the entire part here is that thermo engraved leather. You have some breathe holes, which actually do work very well. The piping works well, too. And, of course, the piping brings us back to the back of the wrist strap. And the one thing I don't like about the wrist strap is that rubber patch. I don't like rubber patches. I prefer cloth because I feel like the rubber will cut and scrape. But then we come into the double loop part, folks, right? And that's where people were curious about it. And basically the idea of the design behind this, okay? You have the double strap, the one, I'll close this one for now. This one at the bottom brings your thumb in like that, so it secures and wraps around there. And then this one brings the other side in. So you have a dual, kind of like a vine tangling around your wrist like this, giving it a nice friendly hug, right? That's the idea. And it's keeping your wrist nice and secure. Now, the idea behind that when you put it on, okay, is when it's here, like I said, pulling our thumb in and pulling our wrist in as well. The only thing I dislike about it is that the loops tend to overextend a little bit like this, and the Velcro is not too strong at the end, so it tends to pop up, and it's been that way ever since I got it. And over top of it, like I said, they're kind of trying to cross with each other. I don't get why it does that, right? It's definitely different, but it still fits on my wrist really well and protects my wrist really well. And because of that, my wrist does have great wrist support. And when I try and curve it back, it won't do it. Usually with Reyes gloves, they're very flexible, but in this case, they're not. I curve it back, goes back to a natural punch position. Like I said, there's my knuckles right there. If I curve it down, it bounces up like that. Side to side, stabilizes it, and it feels good. There's also tons of room in the hand compartment that feel really good. And on top of it, the interior lining, when I open it, is made out of their standard nylon lining, which is stretched pretty tight to the inside, but it's still loose enough to where it feels good. The inside lining has nice padding right at the base of it, which hugs the inside really well. And then you also have padding throughout the entire inside of the glove. So it's a nice layer, also cushioning the inside of your hand as well, which Reyes has always done. But overall, it feels very comfortable. My one big gripe, I think, is just the wrist straps. Like, you have to readjust it so they actually line up with the tracks, and then on top of it, getting it on your other hand might be a little difficult because of where the straps are. Usually you want to start with the bottom strap, but in this case, I kind of have to do the top strap so I can line up the bottom strap perfect, and then boom, now it's on. So I can do it fine because I've been using them for a while, and I've been using boxing gloves for a long time. So some people might not like that, but overall, they fit really good. You can open them really good. You get nice, good grips for Muay Thai and MMA sparring, which is nice too. Opens very well for catches and parries, and has a very nice, comfortable fit and feel. Very well balanced, very forward directional glove. So with that said, let's go into the bag view and the model view, and we'll come back for my final thoughts. So the first thing that I said when I got these out of the bag was, oh, great. Reyes went back to what I love about them. The recoil off the mitts, the forward pressure that you get with these, the nice flow of punches that you get, and the sinking in feel that you get. Like you're getting that nice latex bounce off of the bag, and you get that nice hard puncher's feel, and they're so nice and light on your hands that you can just let your hands fly. They're also great for clinch work, for tie stuff, which is awesome. They're a very flexible, open glove. I'm still a little lost on the whole, double wrist strap thing, but for me, they feel as close to the classic training gloves that they've had in a while. All right, so immediately you see that Reyes kind of stepped out of the box with this, and that it's not their classic oval logo. And I love that copper design that they have to it. It's not a color that you see on a whole lot of gloves. It's just a really nice metallic glove, and you can also see like that snake print a little bit on the palm and that different color of gray. Overall, they look really sharp. I think people are still going to look at you and say, "Oh, a pair of Reyes, you know what you're doing." All right, folks, so my final verdict on the Cleto Reyes Hero Double Loop Training Gloves is, thank goodness that Reyes did something that was new and modern, but did a very exceptional job of it. I'm so excited about that because I think a lot of people were like, man, Reyes is starting to fall behind. Reyes started doing this. And I knew eventually Reyes would just kind of go back to what everyone loved. And they still have a bunch of stuff. People still buy their stuff all the time. I see people buy Reyes stuff all the time. But this was a breath of fresh air to show that a classic brand that's been around for a very long time can still do new things, which is absolutely amazing. And in this case, when Reyes released a shorter glove as far as like entire height and width with a double wrist strap, looks shiny, looks modern, I think people were like, man, they're kind of stepping out of their comfort zone. But they did a good job of this. I think there are a lot more positives than negatives when it comes to this glove overall. I think people would really enjoy using this glove, but I'm going to go over some of the things that I wish they changed and some of the things that I love. But I want to go into the positives first. Like I said, for some people, they just don't like a big, tall, lengthy glove that eats half of your forearm up to your elbow. Whereas in this case, it's very short. It just rests right on your wrist, and I think that's what made the glove balance a little bit better. That, and I think they really weighed everything out perfectly, so they made it ergonomically designed. It's a very well balanced glove that promotes good punch position for a lot of people, which, with the regular Reyes gloves, you had to kind of do that yourself, as you should learn how to, obviously. But in this glove, it prevents injury as far as wrist support goes because you have the awesome dual strap system, the double loop here. And then you also have a firmer padding that protects your knuckles a little bit more. Now, granted, if I put my hand on the inside of the glove, I can still feel my knuckles decent, right? I can definitely feel them here. But at the same time, it's a lot better than the other gloves I've had where it feels like there's nothing there. When you punch through, it goes right through. In this case, when I punch through, I feel like a small cradling going this way around the glove that's keeping my knuckles protected. But at the same time, I'm punching through, which is good because if you have bad hand issues, I say if you wrap your hands a good amount, you might be able to use these, pull them off without hurting yourself, especially with the dual strap. And that's one thing I love about this glove is that the wrist support is really good because on the old Cleto Reyes gloves, if I pull one out here, the wrist support on this one's not bad because how long it was, but you see how top heavy this thing is? The whole top is there, and that's kind of what your wrist is going off. Now, the only reason why this was good is because you could really strap this tight, and then on top of it, the padding was here on the back that stabilized your wrist. But in this case, they just didn't need to do that because of the shortness of it. Let's once again look. We have a much taller glove compared to this glove here. And that's one thing a lot of people were asking for with Cleto Reyes was a bit more diversity amongst their gloves. So they did a good job there. The leather is shiny, although it does smell a little bit more like chemicals, but the leather is shiny and it looks really good. It's still the same durable leather that we love. I think the thumb positioning is a lot better for most people. I personally didn't mind the other ones, but in this case, the thumb was really, really good in a lot of ways. I think it's definitely a comfortable glove, and there's tons of room on the inside of the glove for you to wrap your hands up tight. I've used big boxing wraps on these as well, and they fit perfect, and they feel comfortable too. It doesn't feel like I'm over squeezing, doesn't feel like I'm doing anything more than I have to, and in this case, the glove just does a really good job as far as comfortability goes. Where for me it falls short, I'd say would definitely be not necessarily the system. I think the design is good. I just think they could fix it in some ways, if that makes any sense. I think the idea is there, but if there were a way to make this a little bit better. And I think what that would be is, if it were able to track perfectly, maybe if you had a split down the middle here, so you knew exactly where to go. But for me, right, it's a little annoying to, you know, bring this part in, and now I have to overextend it. And then when we come here, sometimes it's like on the other strap, which frustrates me because that means that the Velcro is going to start just flaking off like that. So imagine you're sparring and someone, you know, brush up against someone, you throw a hook and maybe they go to parry it, block it, or maybe you throw in a jab and they go to, for MMA, maybe they'll push it away into a kick. They push it away and their glove comes up here. This has happened to me a lot in this glove, and I don't like that. I just wish that didn't happen. I wish the Velcro was a little stronger like the old Reyes gloves, and I wish that maybe they had a different way to extend them to where they laid flat and not upward like this. Because see how that's like sticking up here? I'm pushing it down. It's still sticking up a little bit. So all I got to do is whoop, and now it's up. It's coming off. So the Velcro isn't as strong as I wish it was, and I wish they changed that. The other thing I think might take some people back is for... You know, a standard pair of Reyes training gloves goes for anywhere from $200 to $220, and with those, you know what you're getting. They're worth every penny. These are like $235, and I think what you're paying for is the design, like that thermo leather, which, I mean, looks awesome. I don't know if it makes it any more durable from ripping or anything. In my experience, I don't see much of a difference other than it doesn't stain nearly as easy as regular leather, but yet this didn't either. So my thing is, I don't know. $235 I feel is just too much. If you made it like $180 to $200, I'd still pay for it probably because it is Reyes. And I know that the materials going into this glove are definitely worth that money. But $235, adding another $35 on top of it, I think you're paying more for the design and the engineering behind it. But overall, I think the glove did an exceptional job. I definitely think that it's good. Do I say that it's still good for people with brittle hands? Probably not. You still want to, you know, wrap your hands up tight. If you want to try this glove, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing. The wrist support's good. I think it is a safe glove for sparring, bag work, and all the above. I think people would really enjoy this. I also think a lot of MMA fighters would really like this glove because it has very good versatility with grips. I think Muay Thai fighters would have a lot of fun with it because of how short it is and because of how the padding's built and how open it gets as well. But with that said, guys, I've really enjoyed using these gloves. If I had to give them a rating out of 10, I'd probably give them, for me, a solid 8 out of 10. Just because I say Reyes is still doing a good job. For me, I've absolutely loved using these. I still use them. I guess you could say it's one of those situations where I say if you're a big puncher and you like a shorter glove and you don't mind dealing with the wrist straps, you know, maybe you can give it a 9 out of 10. But I'm giving it an 8 for everybody. I think punchers will really like this. I think people that want general fitness gloves, honestly, would have a good time with these. But I just think that price point of $235 is just a bit too high for me. I would maybe drop it to $200, if not $180, and I think people would really enjoy using this. But maybe it's just the cost of the material and the engineering of these gloves just can't be done as far as that goes. That could always be a possibility, right? And then on top of it, I love the idea of the double wrist system. I just wish it was better. I wish it was executed a little bit better. But overall, I think this glove is really good. I think people will really like it. It definitely shows that Cleto Reyes can keep up with the times and do a good job. I think I like them just as much as I did the high precision, but I think these are slightly better than the high precision in that you can use them for everything a lot more. They did not take that long to break in compared to the high precision ones. I like them a lot more than the extra padding pair, but for me, the king of Reyes gloves was still my first, well, not first, but the first one I bought for myself, the first training glove that I had. That I bought 6 years ago. The original design for me was the best, and that's why it's my favorite glove of all time, and that will never change. So, but when it comes to these now I'm getting everything confused. When it comes to the Hero double loop training gloves, I think you guys will really like it, and I think Reyes is doing a really good job. I'm excited to see what they come out with next. But With that said, folks, thank you so much for watching this episode and this review. If you have any questions about these gloves, comment below or message me on all my social media posts. I always put them underneath everywhere, and you're always welcome to message me. I usually try and get back to people in a couple days if I can. I'm shocked as to how many people message me. I also have an email associated to the YouTube page. You guys can always check that out. It's right on the YouTube page. If you go to the About section, it shows the email you can send it to. Feel free to do that. I've had that happen a bunch of times. And then on top of it, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. We're already at 6.2 thousand subscribers, 2.5 weeks in, and we're at 6.2 thousand subscribers already. 2 weeks ago, we hit 6, so that's crazy. We've got basically 100 subscribers per week, which is absolutely amazing. This channel would not exist without you guys. So with that said, everybody, thank you so much for watching The Combat Corporation, your source for combat sports. And as always, I'll see you on the next episode. I'll see you later, everybody.